Hi there. Welcome back. First since Friday, and a sunny one at that. I thought I'd do it from this angle because, following the virtual Vicky theme I have going, I never know where I'm going to be on Friday. That's not true. I know where I'm going to be on Friday. I just don't necessarily know what angle or where in the house, the carface, the office that I'll be. So I thought I'd give you a view. This office has been the best one I've ever had with natural light. And as you can tell, Miss Jade loves it. It's hard to do this. Miss Jade over there. She loves when the light comes around to the side of the building in the afternoon. And so do I, because I don't know about the rest of you, but at least here in New England, I'm starting to feel like a potato. I'm going to have little shoots coming off my head here pretty soon with the darkness. But I was talking to someone today and saying how I had been talking to someone else who lived in another part of the world where there really aren't seasons. And I said, I think I'm going to start being a little bit more appreciative of the fact that we do have seasons, because I think it's really good for our heads to indicate that something's coming. And I also think that there's something to be said for making it through a season, especially winter, where you have to deal with a little bit more of an inconvenience. At least in the other months, we don't really have to deal with all that much here, except your sweat factor. And when it rains and, mud season, because we have that too. But that's not what I was going to talk about today, but it just flew off the top of my head, so I thought I'd throw it in there. So this week is actually coming from a session I actually just had this week. And what is going on with my hair? It's bugging me today. It came from working with someone I've worked with for years. So, the rapport is there. You've probably noticed by now that my coaching style is a little bit more lighthearted than some. We can absolutely have reverence, and I deal with some pretty big traumas in here, but we can still hold that space for levity. And we were discussing, and I have her permission, I'm not talking out of turn, I would never say her name anyway, but and we were discussing, I'm not going to try and not, it still makes me laugh, so I'm going to try and not to be foolish about it, but we were discussing how she would get caught up in what other people think about her, or she perceives that they think about her. And this is very common for humans. This, it's important for us to be part of a tribe, part of a group. It is at one point, and I would question or argue that it still is important for us to have our support system and our troops and all that. So being a part of that is really important. And but we take it over the top, I think, and we become more concerned with what or how they think of us, including the stories we make up in our own head. And we were discussing that because she's a particularly tough boss and someone who's not likely to change his perception around her value. We can always hope that somebody does, and you can do a really good job and hold the space that they're able to see it, but it's probably not likely with this guy. So anyway, we were talking about it, and I asked her, can you remove yourself from what you perceive his opinion of you to be? Can you let him have his perception, let him believe whatever he wants to believe, and not have it affect who you believe yourself to be? This is an incredibly challenging, evolved, and some would say even enlightened task to take on, because it involves being so honest with yourself about what you think of you. So, because of feedback forms and stuff, she did have some material to work with, but it was getting all wrapped up in, like most of us, conditioning from childhood and previous relationships and all that. So I asked her if we could just try that. Could we take it through a practice of how do you feel if you don't let any of his perceptions sink in and you don't go to the place of making shit up? Because unless somebody has said specifically to you how they feel, what they perceive, or all that, anything that's in your head really is a script that you're making up. And to me, that's where you can go the easiest, because you can go to the script you wrote and get rid of that puppy. So we did that. And this particular client and I usually do roar a couple times in a session because it's very funny, and she can hear that when I'm using humor, I am in no way undermining or minimizing what she may be going through. I just feel the energy, and where there's a good spot there, you can bust up a lot. And so anyway, she says, I hear everything you're saying and I even believe it. And you all know what the next word is going to be. So I bust out, and I think true coaching genius. And I start singing, I love big butts and I cannot lie. And it just merged beautifully with the fact that I hear what you're saying and I even believe it. But so I beat her to the punchline and used the humor I'm not even going to give myself credit for that one because that just flew through. So we're going to give the guides credit for that moment of intuitive outbursts. And it worked because we went, and sometimes the levity is used in this manner, right? To bust up the current storytelling and what you're invested in why that other person's the issue and not yourself. So we got laughing, and then it quickly came around to how she really feels about herself, and then we worked with that. So but the thing that came up was, how often do we stop ourselves and use an excuse for not moving forward? And but is one that I hear myself doing. If a challenge was thrown at me, I'll say, oh, I could do that. And then I will have a but in there. And because of my walk the walk this week, I've been catching it every time I hear it and shifting it, not letting it out, but shifting it to a place of, I don't know what's going to happen. If my initial inclination is to take up the challenge, well, then let me just show up and see what happens. And it's been so much lighter to walk around because I'm not pushing against myself with sometimes a self-fulfilling prophecy of knocking yourself down before you even get a chance to do anything. So as a coach, I love big butts because there's so many out there. And I'm not talking no don't pick a basis. I am talking these excuses that we use, and they come in so many different layers and levels. And sometimes they come in different voices. Sometimes you'll hear someone in your own life who is maybe a little bit more reticent and doesn't particularly like challenges or feels fearful in a lot of situations, and will come in with the reason not to, whatever it is, rather than what could the possibilities be. So the idea of separating out what someone else shared with her or and she may have taken on quickly led to a realization that she had another person in her life who acted the same. So it wasn't even her boss. And a lot of times we have these stand-ins for the messages and stuff where you'll see a repeat pattern of the people around you. And one of the excuses that I hear, and one of the buts I hear when I, toss out one of those coaching challenges is, but I can't do anything about them or that or this situation. And my answer to you can't do anything about them, 100%, you can't. it's not your job either to do anything about them. Even when someone comes in for coaching, my coaching is to help you connect with you the best you can. It's not to tell you who you are. I can usually see the the brilliant version where maybe that's not as easy living inside of you, but it's not anyone else's job to tell you who you are, or you to tell someone else who they are, nor is it them really in your way. So if you find yourself saying, I can't do anything about that, but I can't do anything about them, acknowledge that. No, I can't. I can do something about my perception of this situation. I can do something about my perception of this person. Maybe I'm the one who's being unkind. Maybe I'm the one who's launching projections or perceptions onto other people. So the idea of practicing hearing your own excuses will help you to get out of that practice. Because if you're willing to hear them and you're willing to see and do something about them, they'll eventually stop. And you know when something is true. Like, you know when somebody's saying something about you, or you hear that somebody said something about you, you can feel, go to that first sense, go to that sense of intuition, and give yourself the breath to see, is this resonating? If it's resonating, you have to look at it. You owe it to yourself to look at it and not put a but in there, but they're a but, for the extra T. But they don't know anything about this. If it's resonating with you, just think of them as the universal texting machine, and they sent the message, and you have to decide what to do with that message. You also know when it's not true. And like in the case of woman I was talking about, who so generously allowed me to use this this week, she isn't anything like he's describing, and yet she was believing that about herself. So you know when it's true and you know when it's not true. And if you get good enough at your own barometer, you'll stop making excuses for why your own butt, 2 T's, isn't moving forward. So the getting into the humor of, for those of you just joining, what I was talking about is being able to have humor around the buts in our life, the excuses. And one of the lines I used to a client this week was, I like big butts and I cannot lie. Because as a coach, if you're giving me a butt, and personally within myself, I know there's more behind that we need to look at. And it's typically a low belief in oneself. So this week, if you can, it's always about pausing, right? No matter what I talk about, I always say, can you take a pause? Can you take a breath? Can you take a moment? It's always about slow your roll, hear what's going on in there, hear what's being offered by your subconscious, your critic, another voice that may be wired in there. Hear that, and then counter it with some kindness. If you hear, I agree with what you're saying, I know that's true, but just stop the sentence there. You don't want to hear anything after a but. Don't follow the but. Make it an or, bring it to choice rather than something that's so hard and fast that you've already stopped before you even got started. So for this week, have the humor around liking big butts, and hear yourself in the but statement. Hear yourself in any counteractive statement, because really when we're using that hard stop of a but, we're saying, oh, I believe I have the ability to grow beyond this, transcend this, change this habit, belief, practice. Yet there's something within me that's stopping me. Great. Go there. What is it that wants to come in and shut you down before you even get started? Because I promise you, you would not come up with the idea if you didn't have whatever was in you to follow through. And you might have to go looking for it. You might have to figure out where you put it, but it's in there. So this is going to be no butt week. So, and any of you smoke out there, should be a no butt week. So just set that challenge out. I all of a sudden have all these versions of butts going through my head. So it's a pretty impressive movie screen happening over here. And if you're living a life of excuses, are you really enjoying your life? You know, if you're handing out a reason you can't do something, stands to, I think it's true that therein lies some information on how and why you can do it. So I believe in you. If you could pick it up, that'd be great. And if you get the earworm of, I like big butts and I cannot lie in your head, you are welcome. So I hope you have a good weekend and following week. And I will catch you back here next Friday if I don't bump into you in between. And just keep watching that dialogue, okay? Take care.